Hobcaw is a unique site where research and history come together. And I think that's the most unique thing about this plantation that makes us different than so many of the other historic sites up and down the coast. It's the one place where history and research, both ecological, environmental, and historic research all come together.
With Hobcaw, I always talk about its size first. It's 16,000 acres, and the thing that always amazed me was the first time I read that it's larger than Manhattan Island. What's unique about it is every habitat that you can find on the coast, you can pretty much find here, with the rice fields, the beach, the forest, the swamps. And for the Grand Strand, for the Waccamaw Neck, to have a place that's not developed, it makes it that much more unique.
The word Hobcaw, in the language of the Waccamaw people, meant between the waters. For millennia, this was a place where the fresh and salt water mixed with fertile land to produce a great, diverse wealth of plant and animal life.
The Waccamaw tribe utilized this property a great deal. There were other nearby tribes like the PD, the Sandpit, and the Santee that often traveled and traded and used the property seasonally, but we know that at least 10,000 years ago, the Waccamaw tribe used this property.
In 1718, King George I of Great Britain gave Hobcaw Barony as a 12,000-acre proprietary grant to John Lord Carteret, son of one of the 8 original Lords Proprietors of Carolina. Lord Carteret's barony was eventually divided and sold as plantations. American coastal geography, English capital, and African knowledge and labor combined to make rice king in the new colony. But after 1865, landowners found they couldn't produce rice profitably without slave labor. Hearing that a hunter could shoot 100 ducks in a day on Hobcaw's marshes, Camden native Bernard Baruch, who had made a vast fortune on Wall Street, came back to South Carolina to see for himself and decided to buy the barony.
Bernard Baruch was the first in 1905, first of a wave of northern industrialists that began to purchase winter retreats primarily for duck hunting.
Bernard Baruch entertained here at Hobcaw House. It was built to entertain. He used the home here at Hobcaw as his winter retreat, his chance to get away from the pressures of the business world in New York and the political world in Washington.
In the early years, since he was a Wall Street financier, most of the people here were bankers, Wall Street types, some writers. Then you get into politicians being invited. The story I love is the fact that if he backed you as a political candidate, you were pretty much guaranteed to win. He would invite you to Hobcaw, and you never turned down the coveted invitation. He'd give them a check to cover their campaign costs, and then he would tell them his ideas, and he expected them to take his ideas to other places and put them into play.
In our guest books, we have an interesting array of people that were here at Hobcaw in South Carolina.
One of the first guests, when this house was built in the early years, was Winston Churchill. They had both served during the Paris Peace Conference, and that's where they struck their friendship. One of the visits we talk about the most is the visit by President Roosevelt. During the war years, Baruch had become an advisor to the president, helping the nation prepare for war and then helping the nation through the war years.
Bernard Baruch began to serve as advisor to Wilson, but also continued to serve in major capacities under several administrations through the Kennedy administration. Even President Kennedy had him come into the White House and ask for his advice.
But Bernard Baruch is not the reason Hobcaw Barony exists in an unspoiled state today. That credit belongs to his eldest child, Belle Wilcox Baruch.
Belle was 5 when her parents bought Hobcaw, and this was a new environment for her, and she explored it every time she would be here, and really developed a great love and connection for the land, and she wanted this for herself. Her course in life changed when she received her $1 million inheritance and moved to Europe for about 16 years.
I think Belle was quite an adventurer, in part because she was raised at Hobcaw. Belle was an independent woman. She was the oldest of 3 children. She was always a leader in sports and among her peers. Belle also had no fear. She was early on a rider, but growing up here at Hobcaw, she learned to outsail, outhunt, outshoot any woman. Belle began to ride competitively in France and Germany and Italy. And when she was riding in Germany and Italy, she was often up against their leaders, military officers. And due to her victories, we imagine there was pressure from her parents to return to America, and in her heart to return to Hobcaw.
Winston Churchill was preaching what was happening in Europe. No one believed him. Bernard Baruch did, and he knew that Belle needed to get out of there. So he decided to offer her the opportunity to make the first purchase. So she made her first true purchase 1936 and owned it all by 1956.
In 1964, at the age of 64, Belle succumbed to cancer. She left Hobcaw to a foundation charged with seeing that the land would be, in perpetuity, dedicated to teaching and research in forestry and marine biology, and the care and propagation of its wildlife.
By the 1950s, she was managing this property with forestry and wildlife concerns, and by the time of her death in 1964, Belle was one of the first conservationists known to have ever created a gift, as she did, with every acre that she had owned here at Hobcaw Barony.
There's world-class research taking place at Hobcaw today, so we're honoring Belle's vision by inviting different schools to be here. About 30 schools and organizations overall, doing research that applies to you and me.
The research programs here at Hobcaw Barony have been active since the late 60s. When Belle Baruch created the foundation, she gave us a mission of doing research in two specific fields, forestry and marine biology. And then she allowed us to expand that mission slightly through her will into other fields of ecology. The research since the late 60s has been primarily in forestry and marine biology. Clemson University has been conducting research here since the late 60s with a permanent presence on the property since the early 1970s. The University of South Carolina has actually been here with a permanent presence on the property since the early 1970s.
In 1982, the Belle Baruch Foundation began a public education program, first offering programs and exhibits, which have been expanded in recent years to include a wide variety of programs focusing on history of the property. We also provide programs to school groups involved in nature, the environment, and our tours focus a great deal on the land itself, the activity that has taken place here over the centuries, and we try to offer a wide variety of programming that would appeal to a wide variety of people.
Today, one can still see the former rice fields that were the source of antebellum wealth, the slave cabins where the people who worked those fields lived, and, in the partly restored Hobcaw House, a visitor can see the room where Churchill and FDR slept.
One of Belle Baruch's wishes was to try to keep Hobcaw Barony in the state that it was in during her lifetime.
Preserving the property, it's been a challenge because there are 37 structures on the National Register. Hobcaw House is going through a 10-year renovation or restoration, and our goal is to take it back to what it was when the house was opened in 1931.
In addition to our 37 historic structures that need conservation, we have a great collection of over 1,100 photographs of maps and archival material that we've not been able to conserve properly, nor have we been able to create a true database that is then accessible to researchers and also to visitors.
Our vision for the future of Hobcaw Barony is for it to become a world-class site that's known to everyone in South Carolina. We know that the site is well respected through the scientific community and through the university community for the research that is done here. We want it to be just as well known for the history that's here. The Baruchs are a wonderful story. We want to share that story with the rest of the state and with the rest of the nation. It's always easier for people to appreciate what we do if they see what we do. When you see the property, when you see Hobcaw Barony, when you see the Hobcaw House, or you see the Friendfield Village, it makes an impression. It makes an impact.
I think that Hobcaw Barony is at a true crossroads. We have broadened Belle Baruch's scope of environmental research and education at the university level. We've created public programming. We've embraced our history. And at this crossroads, we're blessed with a great number of trustees that have a vested interest in moving us forward. Hobcaw Barony is a true microcosm of the environment and of history, and there's so much here simply waiting to be discovered.